Welcome into the PHNX Coyotes podcast, brought to you by the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's top-rated sportsbook app. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe wherever you get your podcast, and leave us a 5-star review. I'm Leah Merrill, and it's just me and Craig Morgan today. Petey just didn't show up. I'm just kidding.
Petey has not been hired for an NHL job, so don't worry.
Yeah, let's get that out of the way to start. He is not leaving us, but he is just not here today, just like I had the day off yesterday. By the way, listen to yesterday's podcast. You did a great job, except for the banging of your roof.
I was waiting for it. I knew there was a qualifier coming somewhere. I was muting whenever I could, but there were a couple times where I was talking.
I got my street racers. You have your roofers.
Yep, my roof is being redone. In case you didn't catch that on yesterday's podcast.
Yeah, but it was a good show. It was and you know what scared me about it, Craig, is the common theme was every time the Coyotes had multiple picks in the first round, they went horribly wrong. So I hope that's not a trend that will continue in the upcoming
we
draft.
Can't blow this. We've got a couple picks.
We got 3 picks in the first round. Oh, shit.
I would say that things were a little different back then than they are now.
Yeah, let's hope.
A little more focus on scouting, and yeah, let's hope it pays off for them.
Definitely.
But that's not why we're here today.
No, it is not.
We have other things to talk about.
We have a lot of other things to talk about. One of which will be a rant like you've never seen before from Craig Morgan himself. But we're gonna save that for
At
a
least
little.
not since
Monday.
2 days ago.
We'll save that for later in the show. However, but we want to talk about the Battle of Alberta, which kicks off tonight. And this is a historic rivalry between these two teams. They haven't met in the playoffs since 1991. But the two of them together in history, it's just an absolute battle. I don't even know how to describe it.
See, I'm aging myself here. Because they haven't met in a long time. But I remember when they did meet, and it was the Wayne Gretzky years, and Calgary had iconic players as well. I think a Joey Mullen backdoor on the power play. Calgary had great teams then too, and these teams had just epic battles back in the 80s and even into early 1990. It's been a long time, but this rivalry, and we're going to get into this because we had Calgary Flames GM Brad Treliving on a recording yesterday. Petey and I talked to him, and he captures it a bit. You know, he said you don't understand it until you're really in it. He grew up in Canada, obviously. He's been around hockey a long time, and you can see it from the outside. But man, when you're there, it's completely different. It was a great interview that we had with Brad. But beyond that, and just with all the history, I know it's been a long time, but it feels like a college rivalry to me. I said this to Brad in the interview. It feels like ASU, U of A. Like when the new coach gets hired, what's your first order of business at ASU? You got to beat U of A. If you beat U of A, it's a successful season. It feels the same way with Calgary and Edmonton. That's how just fervent it is. These cities just hate each other. Yeah,
well, I'm excited to see your interview with Calgary Flames GM Brad Treliving, which we'll get to in just a moment. But in terms of connecting it to Arizona, there's a lot of ties to the Flames and the Oilers and within the Coyotes organization historically. And that aside, which we'll get to in a second, when I think of Alberta as someone who lives in Arizona, in the winter, it's like you're seeing Alberta license plates like once a day at least. All the snowbirds are from Alberta, it seems like. Right. So it's just a huge, huge population of Albertans who live in Arizona. So there's that tie-in as well.
Yeah. They've got a big snowstorm coming, by the way. So still, it's May. It's going to snow in Alberta. So you understand why they come down here. But yeah, are we going to just talk about names here?
Yeah, let's talk about some names.
Like the first person I think of hasn't played for either franchise, but Shane Doan grew up in Halkirk. Yeah. It's like it's slightly to the east, but if you go dead center between Edmonton and Calgary, here's Halkirk. So Shane understands this rivalry completely. Yep. He's an Alberta boy, so he gets it. But beyond that, you can name some of the
obviously
others.
Brad Treliving, who was the Coyotes assistant general manager from 2007 to 2014 and is currently the Calgary Flames general manager, which I know you get to right off the top in the interview. Don Maloney, Coyotes GM from 2007 to 2016, and he was the Flames exec from 2016 to now. Yep. Still there. Dave Tippett, obviously Coyotes coach, and was just let go by the Edmonton Oilers this year, but that's another tie-in. Jim Playfair, the Coyotes associate coach from 2011 to 17, and an Oilers associate coach until this year as well, since 2017. And then, of course, Mike Smith still active, which is
played for all three teams.
Unbelievable to think about. Played for all three. Was obviously Coyotes fans know Mike Smith from his time here, but was a Flames goalie from 2017 to 19, and then from 19 to now on the Oilers. And then, some active players, which we've been talking about throughout these playoffs: Michael Stone, Kyle Turris, Derek Brassard, Josh Archibald. I mean, the list goes on. There's so many tie-ins to Arizona and the Coyotes, so it's really funny to think about.
Yeah, and some amazing. Obviously, those are some big names too. Like Don Maloney and Dave Tippett oversaw the most successful era in Coyotes history, but I don't think people realized how much a part of that Brad was. He was Don Maloney's right-hand man, really relied on him. And when Brad left to take that Calgary job, it really hurt this franchise. He did so much for them. So he was just as critical a piece. When we think about that like group of guys that held this team together with all the relocation rumors, you think of Maloney in the GM spot, Tippett in the coaching spot, and Shane Doan in the captain spot. Trust me, Brad played a huge role in all of that as well.
Yeah, and it's great to see him have success in Calgary, and we're so grateful that the day before the series kicks off that he gave us a lot of his time. So I think we should send it over to your interview with Calgary Flames GM Brad Treliving.
Let's do it.
All right. Now it's time to welcome in former assistant general manager for the Arizona Coyotes and the current general manager for the Calgary Flames, Brad Treliving. Brad, thank you so much for taking the time out of your incredibly busy schedule to join us today.
Good to be on with you guys. Good to see you, Petey.
I know.
And you too, Craig.
Oh, what? It's like
great to see.
Got to mention there after all.
There you go.
Bougie Craig in his fancy house down there in Gilbert.
Hey, that's right, buddy.
Geez.
Got the Pellegrino right here. So
before you got on, Brad, you should have heard him. He's got to his wife. Yeah, give me a Pellegrino. Like it's just like I don't have that kind of pull in my house.
You know the guy's highfalutin when he's ordering bubbles in his house. When you got bubbles, you're at a whole different level than the rest of us.
Oh shit! All right. Let's get to this interview before I take any more grief here. Brad, you mentioned how hard that first round was on the ticker. What'd you see from your team in terms of resolve to get past, one of the best goaltending performances I've seen in recent memory?
Well, you know what? And it sounds like a cliche and everybody talks about it, but we talk a lot about here just the process, not the end result. And, one of the things we felt really in all the games throughout the series is we were playing really well. We liked a lot that we were doing. We were, we had a high shot volume. We were getting a lot of traffic in and around Jake. I thought we controlled the puck. We had the majority of the play. Like Dallas is a good team. I think the way the league is set up now, I personally throw out this, where the seedings are and who's the favorite. I think it's a bunch of crap. The league it's small margins. And as you two know, when you get into the playoffs, Dallas, this is a team 2 years ago was in the final. They're a veteran team. They know how to play when the chips are on the line here. And in the playoffs, you get a goaltending performance. Anything can happen. And so ultimately, I really liked how we were playing. But you get to, I'd be lying to you if I didn't think at some point here, you're like your seventh game overtime. You're like, seriously? And I didn't know if we're going to get another one by them, but our guys hung in there. They didn't get, the one thing I'd say to answer your question, Craig, is they didn't get frustrated. They didn't say, okay, we're going to have to go off script now and try something different. They stayed on the same page here, and eventually we got one to go in. So certainly felt better when it went in.
It's funny, Brad, when you talk about this team, this Calgary Flame team, in the playoffs right now, they're averaging 41 shots per game on goal. During the regular season, they're sixth with over almost 3.5 goals a game for the entire season, and struggled against Ottinger. Not struggled, he was lights out. Best goaltending performance. He was the MVP of the first round. We've talked about that before. But I will say that you do need to thank the Coyotes for your first round matchup after their amazing run the last week of the season, defeating the Nashville Predators. Otherwise, you could have been facing a third string goalie in Ingram instead of Ottinger. Whoops.
Yeah, well, that night, I remember, Petey, we played in Winnipeg. It was the last night of the year, and we were on a road trip, but we finished in Winnipeg. And the Coyote game had started by the time we were just taking off. And I think it was like 3-0 or something. And somebody said on the plane, it's 3-0. And I'm like, all right. So I just said, I'm going to go shut her down for a little bit. And we woke up when we landed, and it was the Coyotes came back. So we had kind of thought in our minds we're going to Nashville, and it turned out we went to Dallas. But they were hey, like I said, it's a team it was a tough opponent. We're glad to get through it.
What's it like as a manager sitting up in the box, no control over the situation? What is that like going through that experience, Game 7 OT?
It's the duck theory. You try to be calm on the outside and you're paddling like hell underneath. But you feel a little bit helpless. All you can do up there is cheer and swear and drink coffee. And but like I said, I was really, really proud of our group. We played a real good series. We had a chance to close it out in Game 6. We didn't. I thought Dallas was real good in Game 6. And then, it's a big hurdle. Our team, we've had a good team here. We've had some good regular seasons over the course of the last number of years. We haven't been able to push through since my first year in 2015 to get through the first round. So I was real proud of them. But it's nerve-wracking. It's nerve-wracking up there. And as we said, just the way it's always tight. And as much as Jake Ottinger played well, the reason we won the series is our goaltender too. Like even, we may have had a lot more shot volume, but they had some chances. Pavelski, Heiskanen in overtime. Seguin had a backdoor chance that, when called upon, I thought Markstrom was like I said, he was the reason we got through. But it's exciting, but it's nerve-wracking. Everybody said, "Oh, isn't it exciting watching Game 7?" I said, "Yeah, when it's other teams playing. It's miserable when it's your team."
You told me previously that as you gain experience as a manager, you also gain patience. You understand that a contender can't be built overnight in most cases, and there will be stops and starts along the way. So can you take us inside the process of building this team into a contender, adding key pieces, and as I mentioned in our notes, not the least of which is a coach who's been there?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think we've had a good team here for a while. We've had some ups and downs. We've sort of had this young core group that's been together for a long time, and then really, a year ago we took a step back and said, we had a difficult year. Now it was difficult for everybody, but up in Canada, we were on lockdown. There was no fans in the building all year. It affected everybody. It's not an excuse at all because everybody was doing the same thing. But I really felt it, for whatever reason, it really affected our group. We've got a really tight group that, they're together all the time, and it was sort of like you came to the rink and then everybody had to go their separate ways. You couldn't go for dinner. You couldn't do anything, and so the season ended last year, Craig, and there was a lot of criticism, and rightly so, and a lot of pressure, a lot of heat on the manager and all the rest of it, and everybody was calling for everybody to get shot and thrown overboard, and we took a step back and said, you know what, we got really good players. So this idea of making an emotional decision to fire out a good player never has made any sense to me. And what we try to say is, at the end of the day, can we surround them with guys, that maybe aren't sexy in terms of the the stat line, but can bring a little insulation, can bring experience when things are at the most important time. So, I look at, veteran players that we've brought in here. The Trevor Lewis has had a huge impact on our team. He's won 2 Stanley Cups. We had Brad Richardson, who you guys know, who was with us the majority of the season, who, again, just a real pro, has won. Eric Gerbranson on the back end, again, not the sexiest name, but has come in and has played a huge role for us as a veteran guy, a real stabilizing, big, heavy defenseman. So it was those types of moves. The trade deadline, we brought in, before the deadline, we made a move for Tyler Toffoli and then brought in Yarncroc. Tyler's has been to the Stanley Cup final, has won a cup. Callie's been on long playoff runs. So it was all that experience that we felt was the right pieces to surround, and not necessarily just the best, go get the best collection of players, but they could fit a certain role and they could bring that intangible at this time of the year when it's time to keep your emotions in check, and players that have been through there. So it's a long process to get to a point, and then you put all that together, and it doesn't guarantee anything. So, but I really like our group. They've been a consistent group all year. We got a hell of a challenge ahead of us in the next round, but we're certainly happy we're still playing.
Brad, and you talk about building the team and you build the players. And it starts with Markstrom too. And we talked about his ability to keep the puck on that. He led the first round in goals against average. He was phenomenal. So that's a piece. But then here's something that people that listen to our show know. I'm wrong a lot in my predictions and things I talk about. And when you hired Daryl Sutter, I go, huh? Like what? Like who? Like I thought he's retired. Like what's that fix? How's that going to work with a guy like Johnny Hockey and the new generation of hockey players? How is that fit going to be? And here I sit later and go, wow, I'm wrong. And can you tell me what Daryl brought as a head coach to the group that you had and how he's been able to cement this going into the playoffs?
Yeah, I've known Daryl a long time. I've never worked with him, but I've known him a long time. And this isn't the first time I went to Daryl to try to convince him to come coach us. We had a conversation, before, and he was comfortable, sort of moving on from it. And but to me, he's a Hall of Fame coach. And there's two Daryls. There's the perception that everybody sees as the gruff old rancher. I can tell you now, working with him for last year and this year, I mean, he's as dialed into today's game. He spends as much time with our data people than anybody that I've been around. He looks at every percentage of how he can get an advantage. But the core of what Daryl brings is what I felt this team needed. And people talk about the new game. I think there's principles that never go out of style. And one is accountability. Being able to maximize the potential, whatever that potential is of a certain player. And his ability to I think he's one of the finest bench coaches our game's seen. Daryl knows exactly 5 minutes into a game, 2 minutes into a game, who's going, who's not going, what matchups, he can expose, where to put people in the best chance to be successful. And he's gotten the ability to get players to buy into a mentality to have success. And it's a checking mentality. So the idea that he's a defensive coach, I think is he makes you play on both sides of the puck. But as you mentioned earlier, we were one of the highest scoring teams and most offensive teams this year, but we did it without not only giving up anything defensively, but being a really solid, tight defensive team. So I just thought the attributes that he's good at, he's got an ability to push people beyond limits that they thought they were capable of doing, but he does it in a way. I can honestly tell you, one of the players told me a great story. I think that sums up Daryl is he pushes you. So there's a game where, a guy's pushing him, and at the end of the day, the guy's, this coach is all over me and he's pushing me and he's up one side of me, down the other. He doesn't like me. He says, I get undressed, go to the family room, and there he is holding my young kid. And, the minute the game ends, the personal relationship. So he cares deeply about each and every player. He knows everything that's going on in their lives. He knows what their mom and dads do. He knows what the kids are up to. So he's got that real personal connection with players, but he pushes them. And like I said, accountability and being demanding. I don't care what area you're in. I don't think that goes out of style. And I think Daryl's a huge reason why this team has taken the step it took this year.
So, Brad, now we get the Battle of Alberta that I think most hockey fans wanted to see.
Yeah.
We've talked about, the Battle of Florida is great. Those are two fantastic teams, but this one has so much more history. What's your read? First off, we'll dive into the rivalry a little more, but what's your read on Edmonton and the challenge ahead? What are the keys to success in this series?
Well, they're a really good team. I think they're a dangerous team offensively. I mean, they've got the best player in the world, and they got another player right behind him, and obviously Connor, and then you've got Leon Draisaitl who's right behind him. So you got two of the best players, if not the two best players in the league. But they're more than that now. I think there was a time when they relied heavily on those two guys. I think Kenny's done a great job. They're deep. They come at you now, 4 lines that can score, and they take care of their own end now. I think they play a much tighter game. Defensively, you saw that in the LA series. They didn't give up much, and certainly the last couple of games, they didn't give up anything. And then at the end of the day, the three of us on this call know what the goalie can do. We've seen it firsthand with Smitty, and he's been terrific in these playoffs. So it's going to be a really big test for us. But the rivalry is something special. Until you're in it, I think we all watched it from afar, but until you're in it, you don't just play the other team. And this, I think it's going to go to a whole different level now. It's been 31 years since these teams have played in the playoffs, but even in a regular season game, you don't play you're playing the entire city. I mean, it's amazing. My daughter said something to me yesterday. She read something online or something where, Red Deer is in between Calgary and Edmonton, and somebody said, "Please pray for Red Deer." It's going to be. I think it's going to be awesome, and especially with everything that this province has gone through the last 2 years, we've all gone through it across the country, across the world. But it hit hard here with COVID and oil and gas and the agriculture business. Everything's been hit hard here the last couple of years. So I think it's just awesome for the province. Both cities will be juiced up, and I think it's going to be a terrific series.
When you look at it, Brad, and we talked about a little bit of the history to give people an idea. It has been 31 years since they met in 91. The Oilers went on to lose to my hometown Minnesota North Stars, who lost to the Penguins. But just throw that out there. They played 5 times. Edmonton won 4 of them. But the interesting stat to me is from 1983 to 1990. The Edmonton Oilers or the Calgary Flames represented the West in the Stanley Cup final. 8 years in a row was either the Oilers or the Flames in the Stanley Cup final. And that shows you to get there, because they're in the same division, they had to play each other all the time. Like this, This rivalry is massive. They played almost 300 times, by the way. Calgary holds the all-time series lead, 139 wins to 123 losses. So anyway, coming into this series, the other thing I find interesting, not just the history, is the players that have played on both. And Mike Smith is one that you've had on your club a few years ago, and now he's battling on the other side. And Milan Lucic is another guy that has a lot of friends and probably a few enemies on the other bench too. So do you think that brings a little bit extra juice for guys that have worn both sweaters in this competition?
Yeah, great point, Petey. I think it is. It's funny. Like, it's hard to even describe it. And like I said, just to give you an insight, when I got hired here, like a couple months later, we were in the rookie tournament, and everybody does the rookie tournaments in the fall, and we went up, and ours is in Penticton, and it's a rookie tournament, and our first game's against Edmonton, and the calls I was getting, even our president's like, we don't like to lose to Edmonton. I'm like, it's a rookie tournament. And they're like, no, you don't understand. This is whether you're playing checkers. You got to understand the rivalry. So I think the fact that you've got players that have been on both sides of it adds a little more spice, but I don't think it needs any more. It's a real hot rivalry. There's fans that travel back and forth. It's close enough. It's a 3-hour drive that you're going to have, you'll have people going back and forth. So somebody said the other day, do you know what to expect? And my answer is really, honestly, no, I don't. I think I do, but until you lived it, I used to watch this as a young guy, and back in the 80s, the game was a little different. It was a bloodbath back then, and it was sort of, there was a combination of WWF and NHL, but it'll be full of juice. There's stars on both teams. There's, like you said, top goaltenders. There'll be a lot of hate. It's the way it's supposed to be. It's the playoffs. So these two teams should deserve to have a series that's taken a long time, and it'll be a good one for sure.
Almost feels like in-state rivalries in college, where like
Mhm.
when the new Arizona
Yeah,
State football coach gets hired, it's like, what's your job? First order of business is beat U of A every year.
yeah.
That's all that matters. It's a good season if you beat U of A. It's interesting. Can you take us inside a little bit? What do you see tangibly? And I know you haven't had the playoff matchup yet, but in those regular season matchups, how do you see it on a daily basis, this rivalry? Are there any good stories or anecdotes from that time playing them during the regular season?
Well, just the emotion, Craig, like the emotion that you get, it's totally different. Like it doesn't matter if it's November, it doesn't matter if it's January. Obviously, takes it to a whole different level. The stakes of being a playoff series, but we had them in here. They beat us. We went up. We played 4 times this year. The first 2 were up there. They beat us. I think it was opening night. Yeah, it was opening night was the first game, our opening game. And we played well in both games up there. They've got a lethal power play, and it was clicking hard early in the year too. And they beat us up there. And then we came back. The one game we played them here. I don't put any stock into any of the games, but they were missing half their team for one of the games. They had a bunch of injuries. And then the final game, it was a wild game. It was a 9-5 game here.
Wow.
We beat them 9-5. But just it feels different. Like when you usually play them, they usually play a lot of these games on a Saturday night, hockey night in Canada. So it just it's like waking up on Christmas morning. It feels different when you're playing Edmonton, regular season, preseason, anytime. It feels different, and so it's going to be that on steroids in the playoffs. So it'll be fun to see, and it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be a hard series. You can't lose sight of all the emotion, all the rest of it. That's going to be great for the fans, as the players and coaches. It's going to be a really good, test for both teams, because both teams are good. And, so you got to keep your emotion in check, and there'll be highs and lows, as there is in every playoff round and every series. Is you're going to have to manage the momentum swings. But it'll be fun to be part of.
And I look at it as a hockey fan, Brad, which I am. First of all, I won't be nervous because HK don't care, but it's no skin in the game. But here's a fan, honestly, like you talk about 9-5, these games could be 8-7, or they could be 1-0 in double overtime. Like that's how, they're evenly matched. I like the matchup. I think it's going to be great. But the goaltenders are so good. But on the flip side, the offense is overpowering on both teams. So this is going to be so much fun to watch. Last thing for me, I want to ask about the area outside of the Saddle Dome that we see on TV when we're watching the game here, where we see the sea of red outside watching this game. Can you give us a sense of the atmosphere in downtown Calgary right now, what it's like during a game? Because, I mean, surprising to Coyotes fans, your building sells out, but it's hard to get a ticket. So you have to watch it elsewhere. What's that atmosphere outside the building?
Yeah, I think, we're full. You can't get a ticket here. So it's 20,000 inside, and I think it's 10,000 outside. And I think they wanted to expand that, double that for this round. So it's crazy. As you know, Petey, it's up here. And Rob Blake, I was talking to Rob Blake, the GM in LA, and they played Edmonton in the last round. And he said, it's just the difference in Canada is, everywhere else you walk it, you feel the excitement in the playoffs when you walk in the building. Here it's everywhere in town. Like, I was taking out the garbage the other day, and my neighbors, he's given us direction on what we got to do on the power play. Like you're not going anywhere without it's everybody's got flags in their cars. You go downtown and everybody's wearing Flames colors in the playoff. It's just the entire city embraces it. But they call it the red lot. So they've got basically our facilities right on the Stampede grounds. So they've got, basically this whole big part of the Stampede grounds. They've got a couple of huge screens, and a beer tent and a pizza tent, and people are in there. And so the game started at 8:00. I think the lot opens up at 3. There's not a lot of work happening downtown right now during the playoffs, and so it's a pretty exciting time, and lots of juice, not only around the building, in the building, outside it, but the whole town.
Well, it's, Brad, it's for us here in Arizona, we really do miss playoff hockey, but it's fun to live vicariously through people like yourself and other people and players that have had connections here to the Arizona desert. So from Craig and I and Leah, who's in the studio, just wanted to say thanks for taking the time. Wish you the best of luck, and absolutely we'll be all tuned into this playoffs. So thanks, Brad, and good luck.
Awesome. Good visiting with you guys. Miss you guys. And I'd say stay cool there, but I know that's not going to happen. But we'll see you soon. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, enjoy the snow and try and enjoy this postseason if you can, Brad.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Special thanks to Calgary Flames general manager Brad Treliving for giving his time the day before his playoff series kicks off. But
and chirping my love of Pellegrino.
Him chirping you, but how about Petey chirping him?
Yeah, how
saying,
about that?
"Oh, HK about this series."
Yeah, I don't care if you win or not, Brad. I'm not tied to your team.
Unreal. But it was really, he had some great insight on what it's like to be a GM and just be helpless up in the box, but also kind of give a flavor of what Calgary is like during the playoffs, but especially what it'll probably be like today.
Yeah. Great personality from the Coyotes past, Brad Treliving. Love talking to that guy. Stayed in touch with him, obviously, but it's one of the guys that I said this recently, that this game is as much about relationships as anything else. It's one of my favorite parts about it. It's just all these relationships that you build over time, and he's definitely one of those guys that I'll always stay in touch with.
It was a really great interview, and he even said, "Miss you guys," which was very nice. So thank you again to the Calgary Flames GM Brad Treliving. And I was just on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Calgary Flames are favorites in tonight's game, and if you go on DraftKings and on the NHL tab, there's a lit up thing in red, bet on the Battle of Alberta, and there's so many different props and things, and goal in the first 10 minutes or tie after the first period. Like, you can literally bet the heck out of this game. So if you're like Petey and don't really have any rooting interest one way or another and you want to make it interesting, you can bet on it on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. And this week at DraftKings, new customers who sign up using the promo code PHNX and bet $5 on any team to win can get $150 in free bets if they do. And for existing customers and all customers, can place a same-game parlay with 3 or more legs and get a free bet back up to $25 if one leg doesn't hit. So you can make it a little more fun for yourself with that as well. So the NHL playoffs are happening. The NBA playoffs are happening. There's baseball. There's so much going on. So be sure to check out the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Promo code PHNX, bet $5 on any NBA team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. That's 21 and over. Arizona only. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for more details. And Craig, I bet you didn't think this next segment is what we would have to talk about.
Yeah,
this week.
I didn't expect 2 rants in a week.
No, either did. Well, you had multiple
days.
On Monday, so you could argue that this is maybe the 3rd or 4th.
Thought I got them out of my system, but then a certain story moved yesterday.
Yes. So yesterday on The Athletic, a story, and this was the headline: Coyotes agreement with ASU includes good behavior clause for team, comma, its owner, by Sean Shapiro and Katie Strang. And as per usual, whenever you see these two on a byline from the Coyotes fans' perspectives, you tense up because it does.
What's coming?
It does, yeah. You wonder what it is that's coming, and everyone, at least on Twitter and the PHNX Coyotes mentions Reddit, and we're like, well, yeah.
Yeah, what came yesterday was basically a non-story. If you want to lay out the details of the Coyotes agreement with ASU for the multipurpose arena, fine. Let's lay them all out there. I did this a while ago, laid out all those details. So if you want to get that to a national audience, cool. But this headline there's just no arguing that this headline is sensationalized. There's a good behavior clause. Oh, guess what? ASU does this literally with every one of their agreements, and I verified that with ASU, and it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody who knows anything about business deals. These are very common, and they're standard at ASU. I verified that, okay? So you have that thrown out there, first of all, like it's a big deal, like it's something out of the ordinary. It's not. What's your next move as a reporter? After you get this agreement and you pore over all the details, your next move as a reporter is to call the parties involved and ask, hey, Just want to get some clarification. That didn't happen with this story. One call to ASU would have told them that this is nothing out of the ordinary. This is standard. And in fact, most people, it's amazing how many people in the general public do. Like, yeah, this is like, I have the one in my business. Yes, this happens all the time. And it literally happens with every one of ASU's deals because it's a public university that takes money from the state. They deal with kids. They have to do this sort of thing. So just a little bit further reporting would have revealed that. Now, there's another thing that came out of this story, and I don't think it was actually said in this story. It was just extrapolated by a number of people, including personalities at The Athletic, and somehow TSN, like half a day later, that didn't get the memo and still ran with misinformation, that the Coyotes are not allowed to put their logo at center ice. That's not what the deal says. They can't alter what ASU puts there. In fact, if you read my story when the deal was finally complete, just I don't know, it was like a week or two ago, Morgan Olson, the ASU CFO, said both teams' identities are going to be reflected at center ice. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but I'm guessing both logos are going to be at center ice. So that is just flat out misinformation that is circulating all over the place, including, like I said, by TSN, like 12 hours later, after like, I think so many people knew it wasn't the case anymore. This stuff drives me crazy. There's so much misinformation out there on Twitter. And it even comes from supposed media outlets. Sometimes we've seen it in politics a whole lot. I mean, we have the phrase alternative facts invented by a certain someone to basically excuse lies that are being told. Well, these are lies. They're simply not true. And just a little bit more reporting would have found that out. So I don't know what to say, Leah. There are days where I come in here and I think, is reporting dead? Is journalism dead? What's going on out there? How hard is it to make one call to find out what the actual case is? It didn't happen here. It's especially frustrating for Coyotes fans because they're at the butt end of this all the time. This happens all the time. I spend so much time debunking bad rumors. I mean, there's a bunch of tropes out there about the Coyotes that we could talk about. I don't want to get into all that now, but just put in the work. Just do the work. Just do your job.
Wow. That was great, Craig. Mic drop. Thank you for expressing what I know so many Coyotes fans felt frustrated about yesterday and today, and you captured it well. It's just we're so sick of these storylines that just simply aren't true. And Craig said before we went live, like, can't we just have a normal off season, like a normal team, please?
What is that like? I don't even know what it feels like.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. So another great Craig Rich. Should we need a clearing? I feel like we need to let go. We haven't done a clearing in a while.
This is like a Lululemon clearing.
Yes.
Is that what's going on here?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's just.
I'm down with you. What do we do?
Well, let's just first take a deep breath.
Okay. Petey's really good at those.
Yeah, but his sighs are a little more anxious. Like there's an edge to them.
That's true. That's true.
So this was just a releasing sigh, and we will clear that. We are putting that aside. Craig has clarified a lot of misinformation, and if you want to read the reporting that Craig has done weeks ago, you can do so at gophnx.com. Yeah. So this is a great.
Details were out a couple months ago.
It's a great time to become a member because Craig is the one who's calling ASU, who's calling multiple sources. And if you're going to hear any Coyotes news, you should get it from somebody who's covering the team every single day of the week, and that's Craig. So become a member today at gophnx.com. You can sign up for your first year and get a shirt when you sign up, or just try out a first month for 50 cents if you do month to month, and check out the PHNX Locker as well, because there's a lot of great stuff on there. Also dropping today, actually, it's already out, is episode 2 of The Story.
Yes.
Which we're really excited about. Paul Bissonnette is on this episode. So his second PHNX appearance. But it's the story starting with how the Coyotes ended up moving out west to Glendale. So I'm really excited to give this one a listen.
Cheers to Sell did such a great job on this series. I've heard all of them, but I'm going to go listen to it again, just to hear the polished product at this point. Really excited. She did a terrific job with that. So definitely go and listen to The Story.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable podcast. So subscribe to The Story if you haven't already. Give it a listen. They're super digestible. I think no more than 15 minutes. So if you have a drive somewhere, just cooking dinner tonight, give it a listen because it's a really, really great listen. Craig, anything else we need to get off our chests today or talk
no
about?
more rants, no more clearings.
Yeah,
Two stories though. I did do what's probably going to be my last prospect report for a little while, checking in on Dylan Guenther, who's just ripping up the WHL playoffs right now with a goal in every game and 9 goals overall in 8 games. Edmonton has swept its first 2-round opponents. They're going to start the semifinals against Winnipeg on Friday. So I checked in with him, talked to his coach, talked to Alex Henry, who's the director of player development for the Coyotes. So check that out. And I have another cool story coming that I'm actually really excited about. And I'm hoping to do this for more than just one potential draft pick. But I'm talking to Logan Cooley later today, and I already talked to one of his coaches. So I'm going to have a piece up on Logan Cooley.
Awesome. Well, you can find all of those, like I said, on gophnx.com. We'll have an audio episode tomorrow kind of building off of that and what, is it worth it to draft a small center and can small centers have success in the NHL? Then Friday we'll talk more about Dylan Guenther because it's all about the future. And, like Craig said, he's lighting it up for the Oil Kings. So we'll dive more into that on Friday. Audio episode tomorrow, live again Friday at 11 a.m. Be sure to subscribe to the PHNX Sports YouTube channel and PHNX Coyotes wherever you get your podcasts as well. Follow us on Twitter at PHNX_Coyotes. I haven't looked at our we're about 58 away from me having to eat fake maple syrup. So I'm going to give
Tell
it the
your
plug.
friends.
Follow at PHNX_Coyotes on Twitter. Once we get to 30 to 50, which right now we're 58 away from that, I will eat as much fake maple syrup as Craig and Petey want me to live on the show
this weekend and buy a big bottle of just Log Cabin. Or maybe I'll get something worse than Log Cabin. Is there something worse than Log Cabin? I'm not sure. It's like pure corn syrup.
Like the grocery store, like Kroger.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
oh,
we'll do that. Kroger maple syrup. That's it.
Yeah,
That's
it's time. It's time for me to pay this debt that you guys have both. Well, actually,
I mean, yeah.
Petey has yet to
still waiting on that.
But I will say I did hear an update the other day on his plans for it, and it will be worth the wait.
We'll see.
It will be worth the wait.
We'll see if you follow through, Petey, if you're watching.
Yes,
because we are waiting for you to pay a debt that's long overdue.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you all live on Friday. Have a good day.